to retire from executive session and re-enter into public session.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Okay. Thank you all very much for your attendance at our February 21st, 2013 televised meeting of your Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees. And I would like for you to honor our country with us by the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you would remain standing, we have a sad situation where one of our employees' son died recently. His name is Matt Graves. And so to honor him, we'll have a moment of silence after the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please. Thank you. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands, please.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. We have two public meetings this evening. That's the first thing on our agenda. And we don't often have two, but I think both of them would be interesting. We will have PowerPoints on both. So I will open the public hearing for case Anderson 1-2012, which is Mercy Health Anderson. And Mr. Paul Drury will be presenting the information.
Thank you. The applicant for case 1-2012, this is Anderson. This is a substantial modification request for a zone change and modification to a final development plan for Mercy Health Anderson, which is located at 7500 State Road. The applicant is Stephen C. Smith from Burgess and Nyepel on behalf of Mercy Health, Our Lady of Mercy Hospital of Marymount, Ohio, who is the property owner. Again, the location of the current hospital, the address is 7500. And there is a rezoning request that is at 7572 State Road. This is the zoning map. The O, it's hard to see, but is OO, which stands for Planned Office, which was approved in 1982 for the original construction of the hospital. And there have been subsequent modifications to the original final development plan for various improvements to the property, such as medical office building and additions to the hospital. The yellow represents single-family zoning, and the entire area around the hospital property is zoned single-family. This parcel is the request for the zone change, and the request is from B, single-family residence, to OO, planned office, and a revised final development plan for the entire property. I should have done this originally, but to get you oriented, this is State Road here. The main entrance into the hospital is in this general location. To the south is the Mercy Healthplex. 5 Mile Road is right through here, which is hard to see, and this is the library. This is an aerial view, again, State Road, 5 Mile Road, the main entrance into the hospital campus. This is the entrance into the Mercy Healthplex. This map here represents the parcel that is being requested for the zone change, and this parcel is 1.22 acres. It panhandles out to State Road, and again, there is an existing single-family home on this property that is proposed to be raised, and the request is the zone change from B single-family to OO planned office with the final development plan again for the entire hospital property. The entire hospital property is 45.35 acres with both frontage on State and 5 Mile. This is the proposed parcel for the zone change. Again, the existing single-family home is proposed to be raised. As part of the improvements of the substantial modification to the final development plan is an addition onto the front of the existing hospital, which would be a patient tower, additional parking in this portion of the lot, reconfiguration of the parking on the west side of the main entrance, again, expansion of the parking on the east side, expanded parking toward the rear of the current hospital property, and a new energy plant. A proposed service drive was included in the very original plans, but it has since been removed as a curb cut onto State. It has been incorporated into the parking lot, into the interior parking lot, so there would be no separate service drive outside the existing parking area. To the east, as far as surrounding uses, there are 3 single-family homes that would remain off of a private drive that is adjacent to the hospital property. This is the proposed landscaping plan. A key component during all of the reviews from the original Development Advisory Committee, then Regional Planning, and Zoning Commission was the requirement for an extensive buffer between the proposed parking lot expansion and adjoining single-family homes. And this is the landscape plan for the entire property, which shows an extensive buffering, and there is an elevation drawing on the next slide that we'll go over. All the other landscaping meets the minimum requirements of zoning and exceeds it in some areas. There is a proposed retaining wall on both sides of the main entrance to accommodate expanded parking towards State. And again, the main entrance would be reconfigured as well. The patient tower would be constructed over top of the main entrance. The proposal is to come in off of State and the current main entrance, do a loop around underneath the addition, and we'll go over the elevation drawings. This is a sketch of the proposed berm. Again, a combination of a mound plus landscaping that would include both evergreen and deciduous landscaping. This is the lighting plan, which has been adjusted to exceed the township's minimum zoning standards of 0.1 foot candles at a residential property line. Hamilton County Regional Planning recommended 0.0 foot candles at the property line, and this plan has been modified since original approval to accommodate that recommended condition. These are the elevation drawings of the proposed tower addition on the front. Again, just from the different angles and elevations. And these are some of the existing photos. The photo in the left-hand corner, this is the existing buffer between the existing parking lot and adjacent residential properties, which is a row of evergreen trees. This is the area of the zone change where there is currently a single-family home. There was an accessory structure which has been removed. That's the area here that you see. And this is looking from the adjoining single-family into the rear of the hospital property, which is their service area. But as you saw on the landscaping plan and the proposed site plan, this area would be used for a parking addition and then extensive buffering again between the parking addition and the existing single-family. This is just standing on near State Road, looking north toward the main entrance of the hospital, and this would be the area of the addition. And this is the area of the private drive that's adjacent to the single-family homes. We can go back to the site plan. Just a little bit of history. The original hospital, again, was improved in 1982. There have been multiple additions and modifications to the final development plan over the years. The latest being a major modification for signage, which was approved in October of 2012, this past year. The Regional Planning Commission heard this, well, let's back up. The Regional Planning Commission heard a modification to the future land use map for the parcel they are requesting a zone change. And this was approved to change the future land use designation from single family to public, semi-public, and institutional, which would allow for a hospital. So that occurred in November of 2012. So therefore, when the zone change and the modification to the development plan went before regional planning, it was consistent with the future land use map. It was also consistent with the goals of the 2011 plan, and those are outlined in the staff summary, which is available if you haven't had a chance to look at it. There outline several areas where it is consistent with the goals. And as far as modifications to the development plan, again, the proposed plan, there were certain areas that were not in compliance with the zoning resolution. However, some have been addressed since our meeting with regional planning and the zoning commission. The others, the applicants have agreed to address them. So there are no variance requests at this time. Everything is compliant with underlying, with an OO office zoning designation. The staff summary goes through areas that are evaluated, that we use to evaluate a zone change and development plan, and those are outlined in the staff summary. So with that, this is the abbreviated presentation, so if you do have questions, please stop me. The recommendation for a zone change was approval from single-family B to OO planned office. Again, for the following reasons that are outlined on the presentation and in the staff report. There are recommended conditions, and these are carried forth from regional planning as well as the zoning commission. Most of them are standard as you know, that will be reviewed in a final development plan review process through the zoning commission. And that is the conclusion of the staff report, unless you have further questions.
Any questions of Paul Drury?
Now, Paul, with the current access drive into the hospital, is that going to be modified to help, because there's going to be some, I guess, large trucks that come in the front entrance there?
TEC is an engineering firm that did a traffic study for the hospital, and it was not recommended to modify the main entrance. The delivery trucks currently come in that entrance, and they will continue to come in that entrance. Let's go to this slide here.
Okay.
Currently, the trucks go in front of the same-day surgery, and then go around to the back of the hospital and the service area. They will be rerouted around the parking area and around the perimeter of the proposed parking addition. This area will be modified to allow for the trucks' turning movements. But this will separate the delivery vehicles from customers coming and going to the same-day surgery area.
Yeah, that was my concern, so.
So it will eliminate the conflict there. As far as the main entrance, no, that is not being proposed to be modified.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Well, the reconfiguration of the southwest portion of the parking lot is very much needed, but hasn't there been bus access and a pickup point for buses at the hospital? Has that been relocated here somewhere?
That has been currently relocated to State. So Metro's stop now is out on State Road and not in the hospital property. So the plan does, and we spoke to pedestrian circulation in our staff report to accommodate pedestrians coming from State to the main entrance into the same-day surgery area. But you're correct. The bus stop was located in this general vicinity,
right,
and already has been relocated out to
It
State.
has been.
So the buses no longer go through the property.
The applicant should be commended for having met with those folks and deciding to eliminate that added service drive. I think that was very much a positive and good citizenship on their part.
Thank you, Paul. It is a public hearing, of course, and that means that anyone in the public this evening who wishes to address this case in any way, either with concerns, questions, if you're a big proponent for it, or if you want to add something to what Mr. Drury has already shown us, then now is the time to step forward to the podium and state your name and address and do so. Seeing no further comment on the case, is there any further discussion from the board?
I would make a motion that we approve a zone change from B residence.
I'm sorry, I need to close the hearing.
You just closed it.
No, I asked for discussion, but further discussion, but be that as it may, I shall now close the public hearing. Case Anderson 1-2012, which is Mercy Health Anderson. Now, Mr. Jackson, your resolution.
I would move that we approve a zone change from B residence to OO planned office and a substantial modification to the final development plan for Mercy Anderson as detailed before us and recommended to us.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes, thank you. All right, we'll move forward then with another open public hearing, and this will be for case 1-2013, which is an LUP Anderson, and it is the Beechmont Vision Plan update. And Mr. Steve Severs will do the presentation on this one. Maybe.
Thank you. I was trying to pull the plan up, but I'm not having too much luck right now. Before you tonight is case number 1-2003 Land Use Plan for the Beechmont Vision Plan Update. This is a plan that's been developed over the past year as an update to the Township's 2005 Vision Plan. The Economic Development Committee of the Township has spearheaded this effort. It began in January of 2012. We've had a number of meetings over the last couple of years, last year, and into the last couple of months as we've gone through the adoption process. The plan itself, again, this is a little bit of the background. Township staff began this effort with the Economic Development Committee in 2012 in January. We worked with the consulting firm of KZF Design, who prepared the original plan, and the intent of this was to focus on the downtown area or neighborhood 3 of that plan, which is the area between 5 Mile Road and Asbury Road. As you can see here, there were a number of recommendations that kind of came from the Township's master plan, as well as some of the initiatives set forth by the Economic Development Committee. Those kind of provided the background or the context for our effort. We worked through the beginning of 2012 and into the summer to develop some concepts in concert with property owners and what we believe to be the intent of owners moving forward. Held a public meeting with the property owners and tenants in this area in late July of last year, and then in September had a public meeting in this room to get additional feedback, from which the plan was developed, which is currently available outside and also has been available on our website since the early part of November. Again, the planning summary, there were some guiding principles that are set forth in the plan that you have before you. Again, these were driven by the Economic Development Committee and in the context of several major redevelopment opportunities, particularly the corner of Beechmont and Asbury and the corners of Beechmont and Wolfangle, but in an effort to provide a different context for development in those areas. The vision statements are the guiding principles, as you see before you. I don't need to read through those. Those kind of drove the process, and essentially where we're at today. We had a hearing before the Zoning Commission on January the 28th. The plan was adopted at that point in time. The next step in the process comes before the Board of Trustees for consideration, and ultimately would go to the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission for final approval. It would be a reference document for future zoning applications and development requests that would come through, again, Neighborhood 3, which is defined as between 5 Mile and Asbury Road. Again, if there are any questions of the board, I'm happy to answer those. This is a public hearing, and I think there are a few folks in the audience. Fred Hayes from our Economic Development Committee. I'm trying to see if there's others that have been involved in this process, but I appreciate their help throughout this process.
Any questions of Mr. Severs?
Steve, the corner of Wolfangle and Beechmont that's proposed for some level of redevelopment there, I know in the vision plan they talk about a iconic feature, some kind of a signature item at that corner. Do you have some ideas on what that might be, or how we might come about with something like that?
Well, the property itself, of course, is under private ownership. We've been meeting with that property owner before they acquired the property last year, and have continued to meet with them, trying to provide them with an idea of how development may be done a little bit differently than just, say, a couple of outlots or a parking lot in that area. They've been very willing and have worked with us in that process, and until they would move forward with the development plan, it may be a little premature to talk about what could actually be done in that area. Certainly some sort of iconic element, some sort of landmark to anchor that corner would be helpful. For many years, the old Maloney's or Blarney's somewhat did that on the other side, though. It's kind of a love-hate type of icon for many folks. Again, our hope is to develop that plaza space and provide something that's not in Anderson Township. We have some great spaces, certainly the South Plaza here, but for kind of being the center of the community, we're hoping that will be that, and something in that plaza to help anchor that would certainly be a welcome addition. It's also important to note there's a grade change. You don't quite notice it. If the corner building was gone, you'd see it. There's about a 15-foot grade change from that intersection to the front door of Kroger. So that whole area probably, if it develops as we've outlined it, and now that, thanks Paul for bringing that up, would probably be sunken a little bit as well. So it's a matter, and I think you're talking about this area here, which mouse is not coming up. Go down to, now that we're getting dizzy from me scrolling through here. That's the area I think you're referring to, Mr. O'Brien, the top
Yes.
right. We loosely define some sort of structures or something that would do that. It's really too early, I think, to tell, but we're trying to set forth is we want something there that's a public space, and we need something there that beyond just the plaza itself that draws people to that area. What that could be is yet to be determined. So.
Well, we have many talented people in the area. We've got a Betterment and Beautification Committee. There's perhaps some very talented individuals around that might come up with a signature Anderson feature. Sounds like we've got a little time to work on something like that, and obviously the cooperation of the private property owner of that area too. So.
We certainly do, and cost and budgeting is another factor, because I don't think that private owner would do that, so it's a matter of something that is financially feasible as well. But
right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone in the public that wishes to step forward as a proponent or opponent, or just to have questions or discuss this case with us? If so, you may step forward to the podium now and state your name and address. I know there are people here who've worked hard on it, and thank you, Steve, for recognizing our committees who have been involved in this. I think this is a real step in planning in the right direction. Are there any other comments or discussion from the board?
I'll make a comment after I introduce the resolution.
Okay. If no one is stepping forward for the case here as a public hearing, then I will close this case hearing and ask for a resolution.
I would move that the Board of Township Trustees adopt the Beechmont Vision Plan update as detailed before us.
Second.
I'd just like to comment and make it very clear that before we dealt with Mercy Hospital, that was a zone change. This is a vision plan. This does not change zoning in any way. It simply establishes the basis that we'd like to have so that the property owners, whether the current or future property owners, understand the overall goal and what it is we're trying to do. So this doesn't force anybody to do anything. It simply allows for the court system at some time in the future, if necessary, to make a decision based on the vision that we have for the township. But it changes nothing officially, and it's very important.
It does not change any zoning, fortunately, underlying land use plan that was adopted in 2011. This is consistent with the classifications that were outlined in that. I think it provides an updated context. The times were a little bit different. In 2005, that was developed. It was a great step forward, but one that didn't put some of the realities and the economics into perspective. This, I think, does that, and as evidenced by some of the development that's already occurred that's in concert with this, it certainly is more reflective of what could happen. So.
Expanding on that concept just a bit, when you're dealing with a corridor such as Beechmont corridor, Beechmont Avenue corridor, and it's not our road, as we all know. It's the state's, it's under the state's supervision. But I think especially the work that was done by the Economic Development Committee is to, and we used to do this when we had the original Beechmont plan, which was basically a traffic plan years and years ago. But now we're trying to move more into aesthetics. But it would be impossible to address an expanse of that magnitude, even within our boundaries as a whole. So what this does, it takes a section of that and improves it, potentially improves it, so that it can be seen as a model and as an example for the rest of the development along the corridor. And that's where I hope it goes eventually. And I hope it's a useful tool, and I believe it will be. So that's my say.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Okay. That concludes the public hearings for this evening. And so now we can move forward into what is considered our regular agenda. And an important and significant part of that is always presentations and recognitions. And we have a very special event to share with you this evening, and we're all very, very excited about it. Paul Drury, will you introduce it?
Thank you. Tonight, I'm privileged to take part in the recognition of Barb Hefner, the Township Zoning Inspector. This month marks Barb's 25 years of working for the Township. This position requires someone with a big heart, someone who treats everyone fair and with respect, and someone who has a lot of patience. And patience is a key virtue in this position. Barb's day, a typical day, can consist of her reviewing site plans for a major development in the township. Trying to coordinate with the many agencies that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, from the county to the state to departments within our own township, or going out to a house to meet a resident who may be complaining about an abandoned home in the neighborhood that has tall grass. It's very diverse. A lot of times that code enforcement is not a very popular job. More oftentimes than not, it is not a very popular job, but ever so important to our community, especially to maintain the quality of life in our community. So with that, we have other members of our department that are here, Tom Caruso and Jim Lewis, and on behalf of Allison and Betty and Dottie, who could not be here, I think I speak for all of them and say we are honored to have Barb in our department. We want to thank her personally for her many years she has devoted to the township, and hopefully many more years to come. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. And of course, we concur with all of that. And to show our respect and our recognition for Barb tonight, there has been a resolution prepared, which I would like to introduce and also move its passage. Do we have the actual resolution somewhere for Barb? Oh, I have my copy, but I mean, well, anyway, I'll just move forward and read it to her. Okay. Barb, would you step forward, please, and come down and show us this?
Oh, so-
Oh, thank you. Here. Okay. I'd like to introduce the following resolution and move its passage. In here, this is what I was looking for. Okay, I'll use this. Resolution of the Board of Township Trustees with respect to the services of Zoning Inspector Barbara S. Hefner. Whereas Barbara S. Hefner joined the Anderson Township Zoning Department on February 2nd, 1988, as the first Anderson Township Zoning Inspector, and has served as the township's only zoning inspector for 25 years, the entire history of the Anderson Township zoning resolution, and whereas Barb Hefner has diligently served the residents and businesses of Anderson Township since 1988, earned the respect of her co-workers and peers, as well as the constituents of Anderson Township, and whereas in the last 25 years, Barbara Hefner has reviewed over 16,500 site plan applications and resolved over 4,600 zoning and nuisance abatement complaints, improving the quality of life for Anderson Township residents, and whereas Barb Hefner has shown a level of compassion and caring when working with property owners over the years, and an understanding that each individual is dealing with different familiar, financial, and other circumstances, and has taken the effort to work through the resolution of such matters. And whereas in 2006, Barbara Hefner was recognized by the Professional Association of Code Enforcement, which is PACE, Greater Cincinnati Chapter, for her excellent service to Anderson Township, and therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Township Trustees of Anderson Township, Hamilton County, as follows. Section 1, that on the occasion of her forthcoming completion of 25 years of service, Barbara S. Hefner is hereby honored for her diligent and dedicated service to the residents of Anderson Township. Section 2, that a copy of this resolution be certified to Ms. Hefner by the fiscal officer. And Section 3, that the preambles hereto are and shall for all purposes be construed to be integral and operative parts of this resolution. It goes on to say that the board finds and determines this in formal action. So that is the resolution. I do need a second for it.
Second.
Okay. And would you call the roll?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Congratulations. Wonderful. Thank you, Barb, for that service. It's truly, truly wonderful. Mr. Jackson, did you want to say something about a zoning inspector?
Yeah, well, you know, as Paul said, the title is zoning inspector, which is a mean and awful title. Barb has been our customer service representative. She is the person that, when you have a problem, you talk to her first. And she does a yeoman job, and I get compliments constantly of people saying, wow, you actually cared about solving the problem, and I say thank you, Barbara.
I'd also like to say that every time I've called Barb, which is a couple times a year at least, action happens, things get done, and they get done properly, so thank you.
You can stay another 25 years.
Good work, yes. Okay, that was fun. Perfect. Now, we're at a portion of our agenda where we have a public forum, and what that means is that anyone here this evening may step forward and address this Board of Township Trustees on any subject they wish. We do ask that you make non-repetitive and clear points concisely, limit your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes, and that the speakers should state their name and address for the record. So if anyone wants the opportunity to address us, please do so. Thanks.
Hi. I'm Ruth Hardy, 7757 Anderson Oaks Drive. Earlier this month, the Fracking Emergency Right to Know Act was reintroduced into the Ohio General Assembly as House Bill 42 and Senate Bill 17. This is very timely due to the recent discovery that a Youngstown area company had habitually and illegally dumped 250,000 gallons of fracking wastewater and oil into a storm sewer connected to the Mahoning River. And it underscores the need for greater chemical disclosure and better enforcement. House Bill 42 would address this problem by fixing problems that exist in last year's law. It would allow fracking chemical information to get to the people who need it most: doctors, nurses, emergency responders, and of course, those who may have been hurt in an accident. I was hoping to find out from Representative Stoutberg tonight which committee this bill would be routed through, and also, since this legislation should address bipartisan concerns, I'm hoping it will garner bipartisan co-sponsors, and that perhaps Representative Stoutberg might consider joining on as a co-sponsor. I'd like to request that Representative Stoutberg report back to us on the progress of this legislation at the next trustees meeting.
Thank you. Representative Stoutberg, is not in attendance at this particular meeting, although he typically does give us a legislative update, and you would have been able to, he would have been able to address your questions, but I don't think there's any problem with him responding to you, perhaps even before the next meeting, about the proper committees for this House bill, as well as the sponsors. So we'll give him that request. You're welcome. Would anyone else like to speak to the board and step forward and speak to us? Seeing no response, we'll close the public forum portion and move forward into trustee comments, as well as one item that I was presumed to address but will not, because I have asked Ms. Suzanne Parker to address it for us. But before she does that, are there any comments or discussion from the trustees? If not, Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Peggy. As you know, we've recently received some statistics from the Hamilton County Solid Waste District regarding our disposal and recycling rates in the township. And I'm very pleased that, once again, our township residents have exceeded our previous record for reducing the amount of material that we have disposed of and increasing the amount of material that we've recycled. To be more specific, we have disposed 2,300 tons less material in 2012 than we did in 2011. And we have increased our recycling rate. In fact, we increased our recycling by 51.3 tons of material, and that's both curbside collection and our drop-off at the Beechmont Operations Center, behind the center. And it's kind of hard to put that in perspective. So I did a little research this afternoon, and just so we can all appreciate what 51 tons represents, that's the equivalent of 8 adult male elephants. 384
Think of that.
refrigerators. And last but certainly not least, almost 23,000 gallons of Grater's ice cream. So I definitely think this is something worth celebrating, and we appreciate everyone's ongoing effort with making us one of the leaders in Hamilton County for the amount of material that we recycle every year.
Well, thank you for putting that in perspective. How many gallons of Grater's ice cream?
Almost 23,000.
Wow, okay. Not any particular, not, I mean, you
Well,
didn't count.
We all
if it
have our
was a-
favorites, but we won't
Okay,
count
all right.
that.
Okay, that's interesting. And of course, the real, the township and benefits from this, the environment benefits from all of this, and of course, the real heroes here are those residents who step forward and make the effort to recycle and make this happen. So that's very impressive. So, good job.
Got a quick question for Suzanne. The recycling center is behind the operations building, and if you give us the address on Beechmont Avenue and
7954 Beechmont is the mailing address for the operations center, and the drop-off site is behind that building and a little to the west.
yeah, and that's District 5. That's where the sheriffs operate out of also. And
Yes.
we do have a new vendor back there within the last 6 months or so.
We do. We switched to the Abitibi Recycling Company, and one of the interesting things is using that company, because of their rebate program, we're actually spending, I don't know, 75 to 80% less to operate that center than we were with the previous hauler, which allows us to use the savings for other activities to further promote recycling.
Okay. And there's a possibility remote, though, that if we have a huge increase in recycling, we might even make a little money on it. Without
We actually
having-
might at least break even or make a profit. And even though our recycling rate went from 15 point something to 17 point something, and that is a small increase, if we keep doing that, it's very likely that we'll get to the point where we at least break even.
Okay. And just to be clear, you can, if you separate your recycling materials, there's no need to separate it at the site. You can just put it all in one trash bin or trash bag and just dump it into, it's a universal.
Commingled, I think is the
Commingled, that's the
industry
word I was
term,
looking for.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so make it easier to recycle your household materials.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Good.
Thank you.
Good information. Thank you so much. We'll move forward to the fiscal officers' reports. That would be Mr. Ken Dietz.
Thank you. We have the end of January reports available. We are receiving money from the Hamilton County Auditor's Office for the real estate taxes in a fairly timely manner, so we've received over $4 million from the collections that are have been over on January the 31st, but so we did get substantial advances even before the collection was ended.
Okay, good.
We're solvent, right?
We didn't spend that much.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Anything further, Ken? No. Great, thanks. Well done. We do have 4 sets of minutes to approve this evening. I would suggest that we move adoption individually on these minutes. So I will make the first motion to adopt the minutes with only small or minor corrections of December 20th, 2012.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Rice?
Yes. And then I would also move that we adopt the minutes with small corrections of January 3rd, 2013.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
abstain.
Ms. Rice? You
Yes.
abstain? Ms. Rice?
Yes. I would move that we adopt the minutes with small corrections of January 17th, 2013.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. And I would ask for a motion on the February 7th.
Make a motion to adopt the February 7th minutes, 2013, with minor, if any, changes.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Abstain. Okay. That takes care of that business. Next, we have our law director, Mrs. Margaret Comey. Do you have a report for us,
I
Margaret?
do not have a report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Very, very good. Planning and zoning, Paul Drury. You've been at the podium a lot already, so nothing further. Terrific. Sheriff's Office, Dave Boyman. And Public Works usually has something. So Richard Shelley is going to share that with us.
Always true,
Yes.
always true. I have 3 items before the board tonight. The first one, of course, is an annual exercise for the board. We have to verify our road mileage with the state and the county, and that certifies then our funding levels for the rest of the year. We went back and forth on this. Had we done motions in the past, had we not? But the result is, as a qualification of certifying and verifying, we're not sure how you're going to do that unless you make a motion. So you have before you a motion that would allow us to verify those miles.
I would move that we certify the 2012 annual road mileage as submitted by the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Hamilton County Engineers Office and as kept on file in the Township Public Works Department.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. The second item I have is a motion for us to enter into a contract. As the board is aware, in the past, we have done services or rendered the professional services of Mr. Camille Kalouche. Camille is a professor at Arizona State University and is an expert in his field on pavement conditions. I have had the privilege of hearing him speak a couple times at Public Works and at other events, but Mr. Kalouche comes into town and he's able to evaluate our inventory, gives us a condition report. The highlight of this is that, oftentimes when you hire different companies, you get different people that evaluate. The highlight with this is this will now be his 4th or 5th evaluation with us, and he's the same one that's done it every time. So we're able to get a true and accurate reflection of the condition of our roads and he provides us a report that which I can report back to the board. It allows us, it gives us a good picture of where exactly to spend our funds, so that we're not applying money in the wrong direction. His report allows us to plug in different numbers and verify that the money we spend is money well spent in the right direction. So with that, you have a motion in front of you to allow us to enter into a contract.
I would move to authorize the township administrator to enter into a contract with Highway Consulting Services to perform a complete township road inventory, including curbs, in an amount not to exceed $14,300.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. It allows us to prioritize our
Correct.
road repairs, and then
Yes.
we work backwards from the budget. But what's really interesting is that historically, a lot of the determination on which roads were to be repaired was based on when they were built or the last time they were repaired. And what we have found in recent years is that some of the more recently built roads, because of changes made by the Hamilton County engineers' control, that there were newer roads that had far exceeded some of the older roads. So this is really an important part of the whole effort in our budget to allow us to spend those dollars wisely.
Yes, we saw a steeper deterioration curve on roads that were built in the last 15 years than we saw on roads that were built 40 years ago. Change in material, change in process, also a delay in when subdivisions were dedicated. We hit the rough patch in the economy the last few years, so it delayed a lot of subdivisions being dedicated and extended the life of the existing pavement, but put us kind of behind the ball, if you will, as far as catching up on the pavement conditions. So I couldn't have said it any better, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Shelley?
Yes.
Also, this is not an annual event for this gentleman.
No, typically we did it every other year because we just didn't need the data every year. But this one we've actually put off for a third season, so this will be the third year this time. So we're a little bit off cycle, but we wanted to wait and see what the picture, if the trend was heading up or down, or if it was holding where it should.
Okay.
And so we adjusted the time frame this time.
Okay, that's
Yes.
appropriate, I think. One other thing, there's the township roads, and I've asked you this question before, but the township roads represent about 2/3 of the total roads within the confines of the township. So there's state roads, there's county roads, there's actually some federal roads. So this is just our portion, that's just the township roads, so.
Correct. Those which we maintain and are responsible for maintaining what we call Township Right of Way, which is usually all the streets off of the main roads that people would travel to get. All the streets off of Salem, all the streets off of Wolfangle, all the streets off of Asbury, Forest, Hunley, all those streets off of those are typically ours, not those streets.
And those streets you just named, those are typically county roads?
Those are all county roads, yes.
And then the state road obviously is a Beechmont Avenue?
32, 125, 275, and 52.
Okay,
Yes.
very good, thank you.
I assume the inspectors has several levels of grading. I seem to remember in the past there were 4, everything from excellent to failing. Is that still the case?
It is, yeah. They try to give us a good window so that we have that picture. I believe it's actually 5 levels total, everything from, like you said, excellent down to what they call failed. And then so it goes excellent, good, fair, poor, very poor, and then failed. So I think it's a 4 or 5 level process that allows us to, evaluate. It's tough, and it takes a long time to develop this pattern, but where typically you would want to spend all your money on the worst condition roads, the roads are in the worst condition. If you do that, you lose ground on the roads that are above that, so the deterioration curve steepens, if you will. So you have to apply some of your funding up to the top and work on roads that are in good and fair condition also, so that you don't see a quicker deterioration of all the roadway.
Good point. Okay.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you, and just lastly, I have the bid results for the 5-mile service drive. The 5-mile service drive will allow us to connect a access roadway, if you will, from the Wellington entrance at the traffic light all the way up to the parking garage at the corner of the building at what is now on the corner of Beechmont and 5 Mile. And all of this, of course, is the precursor for the intersection improvements that are going to occur later this year, we hope.
I would move that this board accept the bid of $295,778 from Supreme Asphalt Maintenance, LLC, deemed to be the most responsive and responsible bidder for the 5 Mile Road Service project in accordance with the bid plans and specifications, together with a 10% contingency for a maximum appropriation of $325,356 funded out of TIF funds. Further, the board hereby authorizes and directs the township administrator to give timely notice of award to the contractor, and after consultation with the law director, to enter into contract with Supreme Asphalt Maintenance, LLC, in accordance with their bid for the 5 Mile Road Service Drive project.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Okay.
I would like to comment, as I said to you the other day.
Sure.
This particular bid final, when we found the most responsive bidder, was actually 8% under the estimate.
Mm-hmm.
We read recently about a situation where the lowest bid was 55% over the estimate. I would suggest that anyone that allows that kind of thing happen probably look for a different line of work. So that's great. As long as we always come in under, we're in good shape.
Yeah, it's really, you know, of course, the smaller the job, it's also sometimes easier to miss by a higher percentage. On the smaller the job, the larger the job, you should be pretty close right on because of the amount of work that goes into the project. But I appreciate that, Mr. Jackson. Yeah, we do the best we can, and typically we see, I don't know, 5 to 8% under on a regular basis. Of course, the contractors know if they're over and more than 10% over, that we have to rebid. So, you know, they try to keep it at that level.
It's true.
The spread was about 20%, I think, from the high.
And
to
that's
the
pretty
low
typical.
in that range, which is typical.
Yes, sir. Mr. Severs
I
has
was going to say,
something
if I
to add.
may, I just wanted to add, the township's portion of that project is 40%. You'll recall that the county is contributing 60%
right.
toward the construction of that. So that's the total amount they're paying through us, so that's why I just want to make that note.
That's good.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fire and Rescue Department is next, and that would be Chief Mark Ober.
Good evening. Tonight, the two items that we have on the agenda both deal with surplus vehicles. The first item in front of us is to, place a vehicle on our auction website. It's now a surplus vehicle. We did receive the budgeted 2013 ambulance in recently. We're outfitting it, and that, of course, causes this one to go in surplus and need to go to auction. So with that said, as part of our plan, we need to move it to the auction website with your permission.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I would move that we adopt a resolution providing for the sale of personal property, a 2003 ambulance model via internet auction.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. And the last item on the agenda is somewhat related. Earlier this year, or the end of last year, we put another ambulance on our auction website and did not have, we had several hits on it, but nobody bid on it. So we'd like to reduce the minimum bid from $19,000 down to $14,000 and run that on our website. So in front of you, you have a motion. And now that we'll have two of them on there, we hope to get some more interest.
I hope.
I would move that we amend Resolution 12-1004-05 and authorize the sale of an ambulance, reducing the minimum price in Schedule A to $14,000.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Moving forward, we will hear from our Township Administrator, Vicki Earhart, and perhaps Steve Severs and Suzanne Parker. I never know who takes what.
We're a team here, and they've both made presentations earlier in the meeting, so this one's all me.
Okay.
The first item for the board's consideration, it is time to look at our annual membership with Hamilton County Regional Planning Partnership. For the low price of $4,600, we receive tons of benefits from the Regional Planning Partnership, including training for staff, training for our various boards and committees. We also have access to technical assistance when needed, have access to GIS, and also a vast resource library that we have access to, which has been utilized quite a bit in the Planning and Zoning Department. So I'm asking that the board consider renewing the membership, but also to appoint representatives which will be on this planning partnership representing Anderson Township. Representatives before you for your consideration are Ron Edgerton, Steve Severs, Paul Drury, with Ms. Rice serving as the alternate. So there is a motion before you.
I would move that we authorize membership in the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission's Planning Partnership for 2013, and to appoint Ron Edgerton, Steve Severs, and Paul Drury as Anderson Township's representatives to the Planning Partnership, with Peggy Rice serving as an alternate member for 2013.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm also asking the board to consider renewing its membership with the Center for Local Government. Many think that collaboration and cooperation between jurisdictions is a new thing, but the CLG was formed back in 1990 as a result of a grant study. Anderson Township was in on the ground floor of that study and has reaped the rewards of the CLG benefits and membership, everything from collaboration, cooperation with the benefits pool that Ms. Parker serves on the committee regarding our benefits pool through CLG. There are 49 member jurisdictions that consists of townships, cities, villages, and Hamilton County itself, and one joint fire district. All of those entities are able to share information. They're able to collect data and disseminate that through the Center for Local Government membership. So there are many benefits to our continued relationship with the CLG, and I would ask the board to consider the motion before it.
I would move that we authorize renewal of the township's membership in the Center for Local Government for 2013 at the annual rate of $3,825.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. Back in 2005, the board adopted, as required by statute, a resolution that designates 5 posting places throughout the township where resolutions that are adopted by the board that, under its home rule powers, are posted for the public's view and information. When the posting places were designated, it was prior to the opening of Anderson Center. And since we have opened this facility, and since there is a large amount of visitors that come and go from this facility, we would request the board's consideration of changing those 5 posting places to include Anderson Center. We also intend to post the information on our website to reach the widest audience. So there is a motion, or excuse me, a full-blown resolution before you for your consideration.
I would move that we adopt a limited home rule resolution revising resolution number 05-0519-04 and determining the 5 most public places in the township for posting and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
I do have a question for Ms. Earhart. Are we limited to 5, or can we post it at more than 5 places?
We are not limited to 5. We are statutorily required for 5 places, and the 5 places that are designated are Anderson Center and each of our fire stations, with the exception of Station 6, and the Senior Center. We, as we discussed earlier today, we can go ahead and post at Fire Station 6 as well, also on our website, and if there are any other public bulletin boards where people would allow us to post resolutions, such as the library or, one of the other public entities that would allow us to post the resolutions, we'd like to do that because it's important to make the public aware of the information we have to post.
Well, I appreciate at all 4 of the fire stations, not just eliminate one. And after our conversation, I also considered the Anderson Center Station. There seems to be, there's a lot of traffic up there, too.
Sure.
So if there's a place to post there, too.
We can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
So we're no longer required to post them at the Trading Post or the Pony Express office?
No, but we occasionally get the request for a fax, which is becoming quite odd in our world today. Usually they're sent via email and residents can request a copy, and we will either mail it hard copy or send it via email as well. There are a number of ways to get this information.
Vicki, do we need to protect this information in any way? I mean, like, when you say post it, is it actually just on a bulletin board or under glass, or how is it done?
It's under glass on the bulletin boards that we have. It's under glass, except for the senior center. I believe that's just a cork board that we posted there. But again, one of the reasons we chose the senior center is because of the level of traffic, level of people that come in and out of that building, to try to make sure that people see the resolutions.
Okay.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I have just a few events that are coming up. We have the TNTR's event on February 23rd from 11 to 3. I believe there are still a few tickets left for that event. I would encourage people, if you're interested, to call Anderson Center and reserve the tickets. It's $15 per person. The Chamber of Commerce and Anderson Township jointly put on the Party on the Plaza. There have been a couple of winter shows. It's highly successful during the summer, but we've been trying to do some indoor shows over the winter to kind of soothe the winter blahs for people. So the next event will be on Thursday, February 28th from 5:30 to 9:30. The music is by J Trio featuring Clark Jenkins. Food and drink are $4 and under, so it's a great family event where people can bring their kids out and enjoy a meal and some music. Lastly, we have an event we've been asked to advertise. The Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority is hosting a coffee and conversation meeting with their executive director at Luckman's Coffee Company at 8298 Clough Pike. Gregory Johnson is CMHA's executive director, and he's trying to get input from Anderson Township residents and members of the community on various plans that CMHA is looking at. He's going to use that information to guide his strategic plan for 2013. Mr. Johnson has done similar meetings throughout the county, trying to reach out to residents and hear directly from them. So I know Ms. Wakeland is here from the Forest Hills Journal, and I would hope that you would help us get the word out so our residents are aware of this upcoming meeting. It is open to the public. Last but not least, there are two items arising from executive session discussions. The first is to announce that Lieutenant Matt Guy has been selected as the new officer in charge of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, District 5. He will be the representative from the Sheriff's Office and working with Anderson Township. The board acknowledged his appointment, had an opportunity to meet him and chat with him a little bit. He will begin on Monday, and we'll be meeting with various members of the community. We're looking forward to him being over here. We're excited. We have some ideas that are already flowing between our two organizations, and we welcome him to the township. The last item I have for the board's consideration is appointment of Anderson Township Park District Commissioners. As I understand, the board has a motion here to appoint Nadine Gelter and Josh Girth to the Anderson Township Park District Board of Park Commissioners effective May 1st, 2013, both for a 3-year term.
I would move that we reappoint Nadine Gelter and Josh Girth to the Anderson Township Park District Board of Park Commissioners for full terms.
Second.
Mr. O'Brien?
I have comments, Mr. Dees. It's my belief that it's healthy for any organization to bring in quality new members periodically. First off, I'd like to recognize Ms. Nadine Gelter for her 16 years of service on this board. The Park Board has accomplished much in her tenure, and she's done a very fine job. Mr. Girth is relatively new to the board. I think he's been there 4 years, and obviously he has additional efforts that he would like to put forth on that board. With this board, there are 5 members. There's no lifetime appointment, that's not expected, and it's time on any board. I've encouraged, in my time on this particular board, the Board of Trustees, I've encouraged others to step forward to serve our community, not only on this board, but also in the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Zoning Commission as well as the other citizen boards that are out there. Since 2010, it has been the policy and the practice of this board to consider fresh appointments when current volunteers have served 10 years or more. The 3 boards that are most important to this community, again, are the Zoning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Anderson Park Board. The Anderson Park Board does have a budget of $4 million or more. That's been pretty consistent, and it's a sizable budget. I think it is important that we bring in fresh people, fresh members periodically, and I believe that Anderson Township is loaded with people that can bring in fresh perspective and bring their talents to bear at this board. It should be the expectation of this board that if someone asks to serve for a term, in this case 3 years, that they served their full term subject to any other unforeseen issues. Thank you.
I would remind this board and our audience that the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission are township boards. The Board of Park Commissioners is not a township board. We are statutorily required by the state of Ohio to appoint the Board of Park Commissioners. We have no direct involvement with these people. They have the autonomous control of their budgets and their operations. The only other factor that ever comes into play is if they wish to put a levy on the ballot, we would in fact have to approve it. But otherwise, they are independent, and we should continue to try to maintain an arm's length relationship with them. They do a great job. #1 park district in the state of Ohio. Must have been a reason for that. Somebody must have done something well. So.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Dietz?
Mr. O'Brien?
Abstain.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes our formal agenda for this evening. I do want to once again thank all of you for your attendance and to inform you and our viewing audience that our very next televised board meeting of this board will be on March 21st, 2013 at 6 o'clock. I believe that's the first day of spring. I do sincerely hope so.
If it isn't,
And
it should be.
I know. And if residents wish, they may call 688-8400 to confirm that. But tune in next month. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes, thank you. Thanks.